things Jaguars and NFL with Pete Prisco. The Prisco Report, presented by Showtime Sports Cards and Collectibles.
Showtime.
On the Frangie Show.
Frank Frangie, Hayes Carline, JJ LaSalle. I do want to thank our friends from Showtime for always sponsoring our Pete Prisco Report. The best collectible store around is Showtime at the corner of Phillips and Shad. We bring Pete in now because a special occasion. We'll have him a couple days early. Pete, what a crazy day. Liam Cohen pulls out this morning of the job, which shocked me and frankly bothered me because I think he's a really good candidate. I probably was higher on him than most were. And then hours later, we find out Trent Baalke is out as the Jaguars' GM. What do you make of the whole day, the way it played out?
Well, it's crazy that, if you look at it on the surface, Baalke should have been fired when Doug Peterson was fired. Then you wouldn't have had the problems you had in the coaching search. So it was a bad move, but you can, rectify it by going out and getting the right coach and getting the right general manager. But on the surface right now, look, Ben Johnson, I'm not so sure he wanted to come there in the first place. I had heard that he did. The Baalke situation, he didn't like it. But, he took the Chicago Bears job without ever interviewing face-to-face with him, which is odd.
It is.
And so, clearly he was drawn to that position. And you know what? Look, if that ship sailed, he would have been a great offensive mind. You don't know how he's going to be as a leader of men. I had heard good things about him, but you never know. And so I think you moved on to the next guy. And Liam Cohen got a big raise, which is nice. But more than that, I think he got promises that if they play really well this year, Todd Bowles, would probably still be around, and then he'd be the hot candidate next year. Liam Cohen would be. But if they don't play really well and the offense plays well, maybe the defense doesn't, then he takes over. Or Todd's not a young man anymore. Maybe Todd's going to walk off into the sunset and he takes over anyway. So I think from that standpoint, I think, he was comfortable there and he wanted to stay there. And did the Baalke factor in there as well? Maybe. Probably not as much. But, again, the process hasn't been handled great, and I understand why the fans are upset. And the good news now is you move forward without Trent Baalke.
So what would be your advice to Shad Khan now?
Hire an executive VP. I pushed for that for a long time. I've been pushing for it for a long time. Get somebody, who was the last executive VP they had in that position? Was it Coughlin?
Yep.
Get somebody in there that he can trust. Here's the problem, and I think that's why Baalke was kept on. I said this for a long time, and Baselli actually pushed back on me on this, but I thought he kept Baalke around because Shad doesn't have a lot of confidants in the building, at least from the football standpoint. He's got a lot of them from the marketing standpoint. You can go to Mark Lamping and that gang over there. But from the football standpoint, he didn't have many. And so he needed somebody. He needed somebody to help guide him through the process, and I think Baalke helped him with that. But again, you need to have somebody you can lean on in that position to kind of buffer it between you and the rest of the organization. And I think that's something they have to look for long and hard about adding to the organization.
Two things I said today. Number one, I pushed for that too, and I think it should be Tony Baselli. I think Tony, and I know you feel the same way, but I think Tony connects on all fronts. He's a really good football mind. He's a brilliant business mind. He's hard. He's hard-nosed. He's tough. He'd make them tough, and he would connect with his public in a wonderful way. So I would do it with Tony Baselli. That's what I hope they do. Second thing is, I'd make a run back at Cohen. If the Baalke thing had nothing to do with it, Pete, and Liam just wants to stay in Tampa no matter what, okay, well, what have you lost by making a run at him again? But I would make another run at Liam Cohen. Am I crazy to think that?
No, but I don't think the Baalke thing influenced him the way it did Ben Johnson. No, I just don't. I think he would have been okay with it. But I think he's just comfortable with Baker Mayfield. He's comfortable in Tampa. He's comfortable with the people around him. That's at least that's what I heard. But again, it wouldn't hurt you to go back and ask him.
Why not? Right? Why not?
Yeah, the most he's probably getting over there is $3 million or so, $3.5 million,
right?
Maybe $4 million as to keep him around. But, in the back of his mind, if we don't know this, there might be assurances that he is going to be the coach next year, because, again, Todd Bowles isn't a young man, and he's not going to be around forever. So, but, again, wouldn't hurt you. I think Robert Saleh is at play, and Shad Khan has always known Robert Saleh from when he was there, and I think that's a possibility. And then maybe you open it back up again to go look at some of the other guys. Go interview if the Bills lost this week, go interview Joe Brady and face to face. And so I think there are options there. And like we did one today. I was working today, and Aaron Glenn got hired with the Jets, and we're sitting there. We're like, it seems like a great fit. It seems like a great fit. If Aaron Glenn doesn't figure out the quarterback position in New York, he'll be fired in 3 years, no matter what he does, no matter what. He can stand there and lead the room and have his team play hard and physical and everything else. If you don't figure out the quarterback position and you don't figure out your ability to throw the football, it doesn't matter. You're not going to win. So we can sit here on the surface and say everybody looks great. We do it all the time. And the reality is more than half of them are going to fail.
Would it make sense for Shad to reach out to Bill Belichick, and if he's not interested, Pete Carroll?
No and no. Look, Bill Belichick, I don't think you can bring him into that building and bring that kind of attitude in there. And he'd want control and power. And yeah, I know they're going to give the head coach more power. But Bill Belichick would want to run the whole thing. And I don't think he's capable of running the whole thing anymore. I just don't. I think the job is too big. So no on him. And Pete Carroll, good coach. Would he be willing to work with somebody? Look, I'd call him. But, again, he's not a young man either. I think they need a young, bright, energetic guy to come in there, instill some discipline, and also help Trevor Lawrence become the player he needs to become. Because with that contract being what it is, if you don't get him to become the guy you need him to become, you're going to be one of those franchises that has big problems going forward.
The everything you said, other than maybe Trevor, only because I don't know what he would do with offense, Saleh would fit all that. He's well-liked. He did very well in the interview. He was very organized. He had a vision. He sold Shad, or certainly tried to sell Shad on the vision. Shad and Trent, I suppose. How would you feel if Robert Saleh was – because I think he's the leader in the clubhouse as we sit here. Now, who knows where it's going to land. Everything changed today. But I get the sense he's the leader in the clubhouse at 4:47 on Wednesday. How would you feel if it was him, Pete?
I think if he got the right offensive mind in there, I think it would be a great hire. I think Robert Saleh kind of got a bum deal in New York. And the more I hear from people about that job and look, Woody Johnson is a hard – and you've read some of the stories, but even the ones you don't read, they're even harder to deal with. I mean, he is a maniac when it comes to owning that football team. And so Robert Saleh, he had situations up there that weren't in his hands, and he was forced to do things. And that's never a good thing when the owner makes you do things. So I think Robert Saleh, the second time around, will be a much better coach. There are things you hear, like I had heard from somebody that he'd gotten a little too thin-skinned in New York, much more than he was with other people, and called around the reporters and paid attention to what was being said about him. He can't do that. You got to get away from that. But I think Robert Saleh is smart enough to realize he can do that. Maybe Jacksonville is a different market. Maybe he'll be able to do that. But again, it all comes down to, Frank, who's his offensive coach? Can he get LaFleur? That to me, I think if you could put the Rams/49ers/ offense in, I think that would be perfect for Trevor Lawrence. I really do. He can run those boots. He can get on the outside. You can get that zone scheme running, and I just think it would fit with what he does. And the nucleus is there, and I think just getting the best out of him is the most important. And LaFleur is a good offensive coach. I mean, he really is. And now he knows that Ram system even better, having been there again.
Do you hire the coach first since you're so much further along in that process if you're Shad Khan, or do you hire the general manager first, knowing that you're now looking at probably at least 10 days of handling that before you get back to the coach?
Well, here's there's a couple problems there. You'd like to have your coach and general manager in sync. Now, even when they're in sync, the egos get in the way and they end up fighting with hating on each other anyway. That's just the way it is in the NFL. Good times and bad times. When it's bad, they blame each other. When it's good, they want the credit. And then they start pointing fingers. So I don't necessarily think it needs to be somebody that's in sync with that guy. Is it better? Sure, it's better. You'd like to work with somebody somebody you can bounce ideas off of, somebody you can, push back on and not realize that you're having a fight. And it's just going to be a disagreement for the moment and you move on from it. But I don't think that necessarily has to be the case. And so hire your coach. And if because they can't wait. I mean, could you wait another 5-7 days, sure. But the more you wait, I think there's a problem. Now, people will say, well, you can't wait on the GM because the All-Star games are coming up next week. You got to get into the draft process. Well, you have the foundation there. Ethan Wall's been around the league for a long time. He knows the basics of it. He can build that and go to the combine and go to the All-Star games and the Senior Bowl and handle that stuff. So you could still spend your time getting a general manager. The problem is those jobs are filling up. There's, how many guys are out there available, and is there one that you would like to go get? Is there one that Robert Saleh would like to go get and work with? Those, or whoever, if it was Joe Brady, is it somebody that he would like to work with, or Todd Monken, somebody he would like to work with? So I think there are ways to go about it, but I think the way things are going, the way this search has gone, they need news, good news to come out to make that fan base feel like something's going on. I mean, our good buddy Tony Baalke is just getting blistered because he came out and said that Baalke wasn't the problem, and probably rightfully so. But they need to do something.
Yeah, you said LaFleur. If Robert Saleh is the coach, you're referring to Mike LaFleur, who's the younger brother of Matt. But he's the coordinator in the Rams now, so I don't think he could take the job, by the way.
Doesn't call plays, though, in some of those situations.
No, I know, but no, you're right. McVay calls the plays, but I don't think you can go coordinator to coordinator if you're under contract, right? Am I wrong about that, Pete? I mean, I'm nitpicking here.
If you call plays, and that rule has changed a couple different times.
Okay.
So I got to find out exactly.
Yeah.
But and I don't know what his contract situation is either. So there is some talk that he was actually in play in New England.
Well, I think I do think this. I do think that from what I'm hearing, Saleh would probably lean on that Green Bay staff. To your point, would lean on Matt LaFleur, the head coach of Green Bay.
Adam Stenovich is another one.
And I think Stenovich, who's the offensive line, he was a line coach. He's now the coordinator. He doesn't call plays. Matt calls plays. But he's a guy that's on that Green Bay staff that I think would be very highly thought of in Robert Saleh's mind if Saleh wound up with a job. Because the reason I ask is you're right. Getting the right guy with Trevor, not just coordinator, quarterbacks coach, plan, vision is a gigantic part of all this. So, all right, final thing.
And I will say this. I don't know Stenovich, but I know a lot of people around the league that think really highly of him and that he is like one of the rising stars in the coaching profession.
I would keep an eye if Robert Saleh gets the job. I would keep an eye on Andy Stenovich. I will tell you that if he gets the job, that's who I'd keep an eye on. As far as coordinator, final thing. When do you think it all plays out? When do you think there's a Jaguar? Is it in a week? Is it now back to 2 weeks? I mean, I believed. Just so, again, I thought Liam Cohen was going to be their next coach. I thought it was going to happen this weekend. When he pulled out, it surprised me. I'd still go back and make a run at him. If it was me, that's what I would do. I think Saleh's probably the leader in the clubhouse. If it's not, if Liam is off the page, do you think they reopen the job, or do you think we have a coach in a few days?
I think you have a coach in a few days. I think they're going to ultimately hire Robert Saleh. I do.
Okay.
And that he's been there. They know him. They know of him. They don't think like he got the reality is they don't think he got a fair shake in New York. He's a good man.
He is. Agreed. Everybody knows that.
And so I think he would instill some toughness in that organization. Again, though, the offensive coordinator would be key. If he could get, Adam Stenovich or somebody of that nature to come in there and work with Trevor Lawrence, then I think that would be big for them. So, yeah. And I'm gonna, because I know that the Jaguar fans are going nuts. They're tweeting at me, and Baalke defended this, Baalke defended that.
Hey, I'm right. I'm right with Tony on that. Okay, I've taken my share of beatings too, bro. Trust me on that. So I'm with you.
Yeah, and you know me, I'm going to call it like it is. I sometimes the best thing that happens to you is the thing that doesn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
And people will say, oh, you're crazy, and you're defending. I'm not defending any organization. I thought the general manager should have been fired a year ago. I'll be the first one to say that. I said it time and time again, and I didn't hold back on that. But, if you look at I'm going to go to the Washington Commanders. Now, they ended up with, the second pick, and they got a great quarterback. But the Washington Commanders were flying to Detroit to hire Ben Johnson last year. While on that plane, they got notice from him and his representatives that he didn't want the job.
Wow.
Why they were flying there. They went there and they were going to interview Aaron Glenn anyways and talk to Aaron Glenn, so they went and did that. Well, they ended up with Dan Quinn, and they ended up with Cliff Kingsbury. And now look.
Yep.
Look
Yeah.
at where
Great
look at where
point.
they are.
Great point.
And so I think you can somehow, overcome the fact that the guy you thought you wanted you didn't get. Then I think it might work out for them in the long run, particularly if you get a guy that's been a head coach before, and that might not be such a bad thing with Robert Saleh.
Hey, Nia here, and thanks so much for watching 1010XL Jaguars. For even more coverage of the Big Cats, be sure to subscribe to 1010XL Jaguars.